Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I am so excited to share my adventures and tried and true tips with you. Whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 98th episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. And last week, I shared with you my St. Lucia girls trip where we celebrated our 40th birthdays. This week, I told you I was going to be switching gears, and it's going to be all about couple travel, celebrating your anniversary with a trip. Logan and I just celebrated our 17th anniversary. And even though we have been friends and in each other's lives for more than half our lives, so it feels like more than 17 years. I'm sure he'd say the same thing. I was looking back at our list of all the places we've been in the last 17 years, and I thought this is a very, comprehensive and varied list of places we've been, both near and far, both with kids and without kids, and I wanted to share those with you. So first off, why do we take anniversary trips? Well, that was our one time every year, even before we had kids, that we were going to say we are definitely taking a trip every year on our anniversary. I will say before I had children, my love language might have been gifts. I grew up with my parents with their love language, giving gifts. And so that was part of my DNA. And so I liked jewelry and trips. I liked, presents and going on an adventure. And I will say the older I get, the more that it's changed. Where I will say now, I think my love language is quality time, AKA traveling together. But we always took an anniversary trip together. Our first anniversary trip was to Disney World. And this was the very first time we went to Disney together. And it's funny because it actually ended up being a family trip as well. Logan's parents and sister and our niece Rain went with us as well for part of the trip. And we had a wonderful time celebrating our first anniversary with family. So I've always been very inclusive when it comes to traveling, and I knew that we were going to have our time together, but it's something I wanted to share with them as well, and we had a great time. Our second anniversary trip, we went to Charleston and Savannah. And the reason why we did this is because that's where we went on our honeymoon. And when we were on our honeymoon, we were taking one of those horse carriage rides, through the downtown. And I remember them pointing to a house. And the house, they told the story and the history of who lived there. And I don't remember anything else except for this, that the couple that lived there went on a 2-year honeymoon. And I started thinking then about how, they did a grand tour of Europe. And I started thinking then, it's like, I want to return in 2 years to this destination, because it'll be 2 years from the beginning of our honeymoon to, in a way, conclude our 2-year honeymoon. Because if you're like us, the 2-year period when you're first married, those can be some of your hardest years of your entire marriage. You're learning that this person that you might have known even for years before, it's different when you live with them versus when you just date them. And so I thought this will be really good. This will be symbolic, the ending the honeymoon phase of our marriage and starting the next chapter. And so that's why we went to Charleston and Savannah for our second anniversary. For our third anniversary, we went to Italy, specifically a Mediterranean cruise where we're in Spain and France and Italy. I told Logan before we got married that Italy was my dream destination, so he knew that. And I said, I know that we're not going for our honeymoon, but by our third anniversary, that's where I want to go, and we did. And we ended up making contacts and friends there that we traveled years later to both Ireland and Portugal because of that trip. Our 4th anniversary, we went somewhere closer to home. We decided to go where we were in driving distance. So notice how, we sometimes would go internationally, sometimes we would be in the South. And Logan had never been to Pennsylvania. My father's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'd always wanted to go to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So that's where we went on our 4th anniversary. We did a road trip where we went and visited friends in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we drove up got to see a lot of states for the first time together. And went to Hershey for our anniversary, went to Gettysburg, Longwood Gardens, and just saw a lot of Virginia on our way both there and back. And that was a really fun road trip for us. And we realized we ride really well in a car together. For our 5th anniversary, we went to the Alluvion in Greenwood, Mississippi. It's a very famous hotel and spa. The Viking cooking school is right across the street there. The reason why we went somewhere closer to home, that's our first time that we actually had an anniversary trip in the state of Mississippi, was because we were expecting our first child, London, who would be due the next month. So since our anniversary is in May and London was going to be born in June, we decided we need to be closer to home. And it was a wonderful time. We had it wasn't a couples massage because I had a prenatal massage and he had his own massage, but we ate at some really great restaurants, visited a new city for us in Mississippi, and went to a new place. So this is when I started thinking that sometimes you travel for an anniversary trip and it's the destination. You're all about the destination. Like we wanted to go to Disney World for our first trip together to Disney. Or we wanted to go and experience new countries together when we did our Mediterranean cruise, and Spain and Italy were the first time we went to those 2 countries together. And it was my first Mediterranean cruise. Or, I had been to Pennsylvania before, but Logan hadn't. So it was a new state for him and it was a new city for me going to Hershey. But then sometimes it's going to be a local destination. It doesn't have to be an international trip for your anniversary, even though it can be. Not every year has to be that. And it was a wonderful trip. The next year, we now had an infant traveler with us. London was about to celebrate his first birthday. And so he also got to celebrate by going on his first cruise. He was 11 months old. And he went to Mexico because we went from New Orleans and went to Cozumel and Progreso. And Progreso was a new location for us. We had been to Cozumel several times, but it was a really fun cruise that we did as a family of 3. So sometimes the kids do go with us. Actually, London got to take part in a lot of our trips, our anniversary trips, after he was born. And so now that our boys are older, we're back to going on a lot of anniversary trips, just the 2 of us. But it can range depending on what your current circumstances are. So can family go with you on an anniversary trip? Yes. Can your kids go? Yes. Like I said, we've had in-laws, we've had a group go with us before. And then we've had it where it's been just us. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. You have options to think about what's going to work best for you on this coming anniversary trip. Our 7th anniversary, we went to Paris. And London, who was not quite 2 years old and would still fly for free as an infant in arms, went to Paris with us. And that's one of my favorite international trips ever. And the memories that I still have of our anniversary trip in Paris with London, I will never forget. Now, the only anniversary trip that we completely missed in 17 years of marriage was our 8th anniversary. We were supposed to have gone to Virginia. We were going to go to Shenandoah. I believe we were also going to go to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. We were, doing a road trip with London. But 2 weeks before we were leaving on our anniversary trip, when he was going to go too, he had an accident where he fell and broke his femur and was going to be in a spica cast for the next 6 weeks. And there was a moment where I thought, well, maybe we could still go. But then I realized him being in a spica cast and being in a car seat was not going to be comfortable for him or for us. So we decided to cancel that anniversary trip. So sometimes life happens. Sometimes you have to postpone a trip. And so instead we just canceled our anniversary trip all together that year, and we did a family trip to Michigan later on that summer when London was up and about, cast was off, was walking, was healing, and it was a much better experience for us. So sometimes you can't go on your anniversary trip every year. Sometimes you can't go the month of your anniversary because it's not going to work out that way. Maybe your anniversary is going to be during a time when there's graduations, or maybe it's really busy for work. Maybe it doesn't work for your kids' travel schedule or your kids' schedules, or maybe it doesn't work because you have more people at work asking off for that same time. Another reason that it might not work is that that time of year of your anniversary is a very expensive time to travel, and you could get more bang for your buck if you go a month or two before, a month or two after. These are all factors to think about, that if you don't celebrate your anniversary right on the week or even the month, it doesn't mean you still can't celebrate. That's all the time we have, and we're only about halfway through. So if you would like to hear more of our anniversary trips leading up to what we're going to be talking about next week, tune into our podcast. Thank you for tuning into the radio show, Talk Travel with Heather Tate. Happy traveling this week. That's it for this edition of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. Tune in every Monday at 11 a.m. to turn your travel dreams into travel plans. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for an interview or for access to this interview, go to our website, shark1023.com, and click on the podcast tab. This interview can also be found on Apple, Google, and Amazon Podcast. Keep it tuned to the Shark 1023 and start planning your next trip. And we are back. Okay, so we're picking up with year 9 of our anniversary trips. I told you year 8 we skipped because of London's accident using the Spica cast. Our 9th anniversary, we went to Disneyland in California. And we also went to San Diego to visit family. So that was our first trip. That was not London's first trip to San Diego. I just had a moment. But that was our first trip to Disneyland. So we had been to Disney World several times at that point. I wanted to go to Cars Land. I knew London would love Cars Land. I wanted to stay in the Disneyland Hotel because it's vintage and has a lot of sentimentality for it. Logan loves all things Disney. So it's like, that's where we're going to go for our 9th anniversary. So we did. We went to Disneyland and San Diego. Our 10th anniversary, I wanted to celebrate with all our family and friends, bring them together. So many of our family and friends that were there for us 10 years ago when we got married, our parents, and my flower girl and niece Rain was there. Just so many our friends, both new and ones that had been there 10 years ago. So wanted to celebrate with them. So we had a vow renewal on the 30A, on the beach in the 30A. It was absolutely beautiful. Christian was very young at the time, so the boys got to be there. They weren't there for our wedding, but I wanted them to take part and to see that, that they are such an important part of our lives, and they are a very important part of our marriage together. And I wanted them to see, that 10 years later, even with 2 children now, and all the things that have come in the past decade, that their parents were more in love with each other then than they even were the decade before. So we celebrated with friends and family with a vow renewal. For our 11th anniversary, we decided to go somewhere else closer to home. We went to Hot Springs, Arkansas. This was a fantastic anniversary trip for us. And I have a lot of clients that ask me, like, where are some close places if we're going to go on an anniversary trip, but we can't go out of the country? We want to go out of the state, but what are some places that you would recommend? I've had clients do anniversary trips in Muscle Shoals at the Marriott there, which is absolutely beautiful. Makes for a very, quick and easy anniversary trip where if you don't have a lot of time, you've got a night, you've got 2 nights. I've had a lot of clients that would do Gatlinburg or Chattanooga. But Hot Springs is one of those that I recommend time and time again. And I can personally say that we had our anniversary trip there. And one of the most special moments was when we went out to dinner. And this restaurant's not even there anymore. It's called Angels at the Park. It's an Italian restaurant. They used to have 2 different locations, and I think they're down to 1 now. With the pandemic, there are a lot of changes in restaurants. A lot of restaurants closed, or if they have multiple locations, they let go of some. But this was right across from the national park, really close to the Arlington. And so we went there for dinner, made reservations, and that was going to be our restaurant for dinner that night. And we just had the most amazing server who treated our anniversary, and it was our 11th anniversary, but treated it like we were on our honeymoon all over again. And we were seated in a table, I'll never forget, that had a blue light over it. And there was like a saying that it was, good luck and love and romance would follow any couple that sat at this table. So they seated us in a very special place. And then our server came, and to celebrate our anniversary, brought over champagne. Here's one of my tips. When you're on your anniversary trip, whether it's your 1st anniversary, your 17th anniversary, your 30th, your 50th, always tell people you're celebrating your anniversary. That should go without saying, right? It should. But even if it's simply like you just want them to know you're celebrating something special. That doesn't mean that you're going to get any type of special treatment or the expectations, but it's good to let people know. Because oftentimes people want to celebrate with you. And so we had no expectations when we told them we were celebrating our anniversary, but we made sure to tell them because sometimes that means they're going to put you in a great spot. Or maybe they're going to give you the best server known to the restaurant. Or in this case, when we did have that, our server brought us over free champagne. And Logan and I, on our 11th anniversary, hadn't had a lot of champagne in our lives. I've probably had a lot more champagne the past couple of years than I had the first 11 years of our marriage. But we had not had a lot of champagne, maybe just a very little. And not only did we get champagne, we were told the story of where they believe, champagne came from. And so that was a very special moment for us where I felt like not only were we celebrating, but people around us were happy for us and celebrating with us as well. So tell people you're on your honeymoon, you're on your anniversary, you're celebrating, birthday trip, let them know that. For our 12th anniversary, we went to Jamaica. And we celebrated. So we went from Hot Springs, Arkansas, we went to in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. We stayed at Sandals Royal Plantation, where it's a butler boutique resort, all inclusive, room service, butler service on the beach, amazing experience. But I will say I love both. So both anniversary trips, like those, both in Hot Springs and Jamaica, were both super special. But that's where we started, where we realized, like, even if it's just 3 nights or 4 nights, we could still take a trip, the 2 of us, and go to the Caribbean to spend together. And so the entire time we were there, that 3 nights felt like a week. Just like I said that my 3 nights when I went with my best friend to St. Lucia felt like a week. It can feel longer than that, even if you just have a short trip. So if you don't have a full week, that doesn't mean you can't take a great anniversary trip. Maybe you just have a weekend and you can still go somewhere special. Maybe you just have a night. Maybe you just have 2 nights. And so then there's other options. But if you have at least 3 nights you can spend, you can go to the Caribbean. And I will tell you the best options for where to go if you have a shorter trip. Another thing to note, though, if you do have 7 nights you can travel, you can go to a Sandals resort if you're staying in a club or a butler room, and it's within 30 days of your anniversary. So that means you've got a 2-month window there, 30 days before or 30 days after, and you get your 7th night free. That's a huge value. I have a lot of clients that take advantage of that. Their anniversary's in July, but they, can't travel till August. That's fine. It's within 30 days of their anniversary. They pay for 6 nights. They get their 7th night free. That can be several $100s or even over $1,000 in value. So if you're interested in planning a longer or a shorter anniversary trip, definitely reach out to me. Heather and Logan Tate, Whimsical Destinations, on our Facebook group. It's a great place to get some ideas for anniversary trips. Okay, so moving on. Our 13th anniversary, looking back, I was like, it's our 13th anniversary. This should mean something. Was in 2020. So we also had plans to go to Jamaica. Guess what happened in May 2020? Nobody went anywhere. So we celebrated at home. I remember us eating in our dining room. We had a Beauty and the Beast themed dinner, and we ended up, we were online. We were Zooming with other friends in our travel agency, Whimsical Destinations, where we were meeting up once a week or once a month. I can't remember now. I think it was once a month to have a dinner together. So that's what we were doing. But we delayed our anniversary. Remember I told you sometimes the anniversary trips get canceled. Sometimes they get delayed. We were able to bump our trip to end of July. And so that's what we did. We ended up going to Jamaica. We went to Sandals Montego Bay. We were originally going to go to Sandals South Coast, but it wasn't reopened yet. Montego Bay was. So we went back to Jamaica for our anniversary trip. We go to Jamaica a lot. I've been to Jamaica now 13 times. I absolutely love it. It makes a fantastic anniversary trip. I have 10 couples right now in Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia. Some just got back from Grenada, Antigua. There's a lot of options in the Caribbean to celebrate an anniversary trip. Our 14th anniversary, we went to St. Lucia. St. Lucia's my favorite island in the Caribbean, and I had been a few years before, and Logan had not been, so I wanted to share that experience with him. So I've now been to St. Lucia 3 times, and Logan has been once. So I told the boys I owe them a family trip to St. Lucia. We can all go back together. For our 15th anniversary, we went to Beaches, Turks, and Caicos. And guess what? I wanted to do another vow renewal. We had done the vow renewal on the 30A, so I had that experience and shared with lots of family and friends. And this one, we did have some friends who were going to be there as well, and we're so glad that they got to join us. It just worked out that the timing was perfect. They were going to Beaches, Turks, and Caicos too. They managed to adjust their dates so they could be there and celebrate with us. But I wanted to have an experience of having a retie the knot at a Sandals or Beaches, and the boys made it very clear. London and Christian said that if we're doing that, we're doing it at the Beaches so they can go. So 2 years before, when we went to Beaches, Turks, and Caicos for the first time, I remember thinking, we are going to be back. We are going to have our 15th vow renewal here. And we did. And it was amazing. If you'd like to see pictures of that, again, on the Facebook group. Last year, so we went from Beaches, Turks, and Caicos, St. Lucia, Jamaica, to last year for our anniversary trip, we stayed in a tree house in Georgia. So remember, I told you I like to change it up. I'll go anywhere from international, overseas to, it can be in Mississippi, it can be in Arkansas, or in this case, it was a little tree house in Georgia. And this past year, for our 17th anniversary, I was invited to go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines by Sandals for being nominated for the Star Awards for 2024. And so it was going to be the week of our anniversary. So I told Logan, it just makes sense. The stars have aligned. Our anniversary trip this year will be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which I'm going to share with you more next week. A few tips for anniversary trips. Make it special. Go out to dinner somewhere, really nice, and that be your anniversary dinner. Have a candlelight dinner on the beach. If you're going to a Sandals or Beaches resort, that's something that we can schedule ahead of time. Do a massage together, a couple's massage. Have a vow renewal. If it's going to be a big milestone anniversary, or maybe you didn't get to have the wedding of your dreams for many different reasons. So it doesn't matter then if it's your first anniversary or your 7th anniversary, or maybe it's your 17th anniversary. You can do a vow renewal any year to celebrate your anniversary. Make the trip itself the gift. I have clients that do this all the time. They're like, we have so much stuff. We have everything we possibly can need. I don't even know what to get my wife or my spouse, my husband. Then, you know what? Take the trip together. Make the anniversary trip itself the gift. So Logan and I did not give each other a thing this year for anniversary. We did go out to dinner in Oxford, and that was fun when we got back from our trip. But we made the trip itself the gift to each other. And I did not feel in one bit slighted because it was such an incredible trip that I can't wait to tell you about next week. Another thing you could do, make a photo book of your anniversary trip. And every year that you have an anniversary trip, you have now a photo book that you can look, an album you can look back together. Or maybe you collect something. Maybe you collect, local artwork or ornaments. A lot of people collect Christmas ornaments. And so each anniversary trip you go on, you can take and buy an ornament. Another thing that you could do, I have a really good friend who every year for their anniversary trip, they go to a different state. And I think this is such a great idea that they planned, it's not an international trip, but they're going to, by their 50th anniversary, if not before, because there's some states they end up going to that's not an anniversary trip, they'll have been to all 50 states together. And I love that. And I know they've already been to several different states, including North Dakota and Nevada, Florida. So there's so many different ones that they've been to, Illinois, where you can pick a different state and go to for your anniversary trip. Keep a scrapbook of the things that you do while you're on your anniversary trip. Here's another tip, something I wish that I had done that I did not. When you're on your anniversary trip, send a postcard to yourselves at home. We're celebrating our 3rd anniversary, here on our Mediterranean cruise in Italy, or we're celebrating our 7th anniversary in Paris, or our 14th anniversary in St. Lucia, or our 11th anniversary in Hot Springs. I really wish I had done that. And maybe if I get to go back to these places, I am going to go ahead and pick up a postcard, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to write and put in a book, like, this is where we celebrated this anniversary. It would have been better if I had done it in real time and kept up with it. But you know what? Hindsight's 20/20. So I didn't think to do this 17 years ago. But if you're a newlywed, this is a tradition you can start. There's so many reasons why you should take an anniversary trip. The time to reconnect together. Put your focus back on your spouse. If you have children, if you have busy lives at work, like so many of us do, it is more important to take an anniversary trip than even that honeymoon. And I'm going to say that as someone who is a honeymoon specialist. Honeymoons are amazing. I think everyone should do one. But I think anniversary trips, as you age together, are just as important, if not more important, to do together. So whether you have one night, 3 nights, a week, anything in between, take that trip. Spend time together. Make the memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcast, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.